Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Officer Cadet Michaela Cox. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge His Most Eminent Highness Fra John Dunlap, Prince and Grand Master of the Sovereign Military Hospitaller Order of St. John of Jerusalem, Rhodes and Malta. Dr. Fadlo Khoury, President of the American University of Beirut, accompanied by His Excellency Mr. Milad Raad, Ambassador of Lebanon to Australia. Admiral Silva Lima, Chief of Naval Staff of the Brazilian Navy, and Mrs. Claudia Silva Lima, accompanied by Commodore John Stavridis, Acting Deputy Chief of Navy, and their accompanying delegations. We also warmly welcome representatives from the Royal Australian Naval College. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Frederick Herbert Savill. Frederick Savill was born in 1880 in Canberra, New South Wales. He was the youngest of 5 boys, born to William and Mary Savill. The family lived in Lismore for most of Frederick's life, and he attended Lismore Public School before finding work as a wheelwright and linesman. 4 of the 5 Savill brothers served in the South African War, including Frederick, who served for 1 year and 58 days with the Queensland Imperial Bushmen in the rank of private. After the end of that war, Frederick returned to Lismore and his job as a wheelwright. In 1910, Frederick Savill married Ethel Gray in Brisbane. The couple had 2 daughters, Irene May and Laura. Their mother died of peritonitis in 1913, aged only 22, leaving Frederick to care for his 2 young daughters alone. Savill enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 31st of August 1914. He was assigned to the 4th Infantry Battalion in the rank of private and left Australia on the 20th of October 1914 on HMAT Euripides. As the rest of the battalion was preparing for the landing on Gallipoli, Savill was transferred to base details in Egypt. He joined the battalion on the Gallipoli Peninsula on the 7th of May 1915. He was wounded in action on the 19th of May during an enemy attack and was promoted to corporal on the same day. Savill was admitted to hospital, then transferred back to base details at Zaitun Camp. Savill rejoined the 4th Battalion on Gallipoli in July. He fought with them during the attack on Lone Pine in August before being evacuated to Madras in September for treatment on his ear. He was back on Gallipoli in October and on the 29th of November was promoted to sergeant. He remained with the 4th Battalion until they were withdrawn from Gallipoli in late December. In January 1916, Sergeant Savill was transferred to the Imperial Camel Corps at Abbasia. The Camel Corps was initially engaged in skirmishes with pro-Ottoman Senussi tribal groups in Egypt's western desert. In late July, Savill was admitted to hospital, suffering from sepsis of his right foot. He returned to duty on the 6th of August, rejoining the Camel Corps in Palestine as part of efforts to push back the Ottomans. On the 1st of October 1916, Savill was mentioned in dispatches for valuable services and conspicuous bravery. He was admitted to hospital again in December, where he remained until early February 1917, and then rejoined the Camel Corps in the Sinai Peninsula. The Corps suffered heavily during the Second Battle of Gaza on the 19th of April 1917. During this battle, Sergeant Frederick Savill was captured by the Ottoman forces and taken prisoner of war. After his capture, Savill was taken to Niğde in Turkey. Disease was common among prisoners of war, and by early November, Savill was suffering from malaria and was hospitalized. Sergeant Frederick Savill died of malaria and dysentery at Niğde Hospital on the 9th of November 1917. He was 37 years old. Savill was initially buried in the cemetery at Niğde in an unmarked grave. In 1927, his remains were exhumed and reinterred at the Baghdad North Gate War Cemetery. But it proved impossible to identify and separate Savill's remains from those of other prisoners of war. As a result, a special headstone was erected reading, "Buried near this spot." The headstone also contained a short personal inscription selected by his family on behalf of his 2 orphaned daughters. "Thy will be done." Frederick's name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Frederick Herbert Savill, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Everybody, present arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.